Welcome to my channel, I'm Gary Wiriawan, and today we're going to compare between a Micro Four Thirds camera with a flagship Samsung Galaxy Note 10 camera. Let's go! Before we continue with the video, there are a couple of things that I want to say. First, we're recording this during the difficult time of coronavirus, so stay at home, stay healthy, eat healthy, wash your hands a lot, and avoid going to crowded place. Also, don't forget to support my channel by liking this video, sharing this video, and subscribing to my channel down below. Thank you, and let's continue with the video. So today, I want to make a comparison between a Micro Four Thirds camera, the Panasonic GX8, as well as the Panasonic G85 that's currently recording this video, with a Samsung flagship phone from last year, the Galaxy Note 10. So for the record here, I'm not using the latest and the greatest Micro Four Thirds camera. This camera is actually 5 years old, and the G85 that's recording me right now is about 4 years old, and this Samsung phone is about 1 year old. But I think it's more than enough for this comparison. So first, let me begin by saying that I'm not a professional photographer or filmmaker, and the reason why I invested in Micro Four Thirds camera is that back then, few years ago, smartphone camera is not good enough, so I have to rely on a proper camera for my photography needs. I mainly do travel photography, street photography, landscape photography, and product photography, and Micro Four Thirds camera really suits well on these applications. However, I truly believe that one day in the future, our phones will be more than enough for producing great photography as well for video, even for professionals. And to be honest, I'm always waiting for that day to come, and spoiler alert, that day hasn't come yet, but it's close. So now in this video, I'm gonna test how good is the camera from these smartphones, and will it be more than enough to replace my Micro Four Thirds camera system. So before we go any further, this isn't actually a scientific test, and I don't even think that it's fair at all to compare these two systems. There are many features that might be present in one system but might not be available in the other system, and vice versa. For example, the Galaxy Note 10 cannot shoot DNG or RAW using the ultra-wide angle lens or the telephoto lens, but my Micro Four Thirds camera can actually shoot RAW just fine. And so for this comparison, I'm going to shoot RAW using my Micro Four Thirds, but I will do very light adjustment on the Lightroom and then export my RAW into JPEG so that I can do a fair and neutral comparison with the Galaxy Note 10. For the Micro Four Thirds camera equipment, I will be using the Panasonic GX8 with the Panasonic 12 to 35mm f2.8, as well as my Panasonic G85 with the Laowa 7.5mm f2 as a comparison with the Galaxy Note 10 using all the three lenses. So I managed to capture some pictures using the Galaxy Note 10 when I first received it a few weeks ago, and I've been impressed with the results so far. And after a few weeks of observation, I started to notice some little details about the result using the Galaxy Note 10, and I'm ready to compare it with my Micro Four Thirds system. First thing first, I don't really care about the details. When you compare between a Micro Four Thirds camera and a smartphone camera, there's just no comparison. The Micro Four Thirds is much more detailed than the smartphone camera, but that is expected. We're gonna compare the other details. However, I'm just gonna say that the Note 10, although it's not as sharp as Micro Four Thirds, it's still impressive in my opinion. So first, let's talk about color and contrast. The overall color and contrast from the image produced using the Galaxy Note 10 looks okay to me. They look good, they look impressive, and I think it's a step on the right direction for the smartphone camera. There are a couple of instances where the Galaxy Note 10 can produce slightly oversaturated or overcontrasted image, but that is to be expected. What you have to keep in mind that on older Samsung phones, they usually tend to oversaturate and overcontrast the image. So on this one is actually better when you compare it with older Samsung phone. Other things to notice, there are a couple of useful shooting modes when you are using the Galaxy Note 10, such as the live focus mode, which is basically a digital bokeh where you can apply the bokeh after you take the shot and just get the perfect amount of bokeh that you want on your photos. There's also a night shooting mode on the Galaxy Note 10 so that if you're shooting on a lower light situation, you can still get plenty enough details and get a balanced exposure when you need to. However, in my experience, the night mode on the Galaxy Note 10 tend to have a softer image with less sharpness. I suspect that this is because of the software's noise reduction as well as the sensor's inability to preserve detail on longer exposures. Other things to notice, the main lens on this phone produces the best result among the three lenses. And although the telephoto and the ultra-wide lens on this camera isn't as good as the main lens, they're not bad in my opinion. I love the ultra-wide lens on this phone in particular. I really think that the ultra-wide angle lens on this phone is very useful, and I can see myself using this phone with the ultra-wide angle lens to capture beautiful landscape photos as I did with my previous smartphone, which also has ultra-wide angle lens, and this is the LG V30. I also think that the telephoto lens is also useful on this phone. It can help me to capture faraway objects as well as portrait. However, I think that the bokeh produced by this lens is not enough, so I have to rely on the live focus mode to get more bokeh as I desire. Now, I am using Laowa 7.5mm f2, which is recording this video right now, as my main ultra-wide angle lens when I'm using my Micro Four Thirds camera. And when I'm comparing the Laowa lens with the ultra-wide angle lens of the Galaxy Note 10, I really think that the Laowa is much sharper, which is to be expected. But the Galaxy Note 10 ultra-wide angle lens is much wider than the Laowa, so it can be very useful in some situations. And if we are comparing the telephoto lens on the Galaxy Note 10 with my Panasonic 12 to 35mm f2.8, the focal length on the Galaxy Note 10 is about 25mm on this lens, or it's about 50mm in full frame. Now 50mm in full frame is a very popular focal length for street photography, so I'm actually very excited to be able to bring this phone next time I go to travel to shoot some street photography using the telephoto lens on the Note 10. Now let's talk about bokeh. Naturally, bokeh on Micro Four Thirds will be much better when compared to a smartphone bokeh, because Micro Four Thirds bokeh is actually a natural bokeh. It's not artificial, it's not produced by software. And I gotta be honest with you, bokeh on the Galaxy Note 10 is actually hit or miss. But if it really hits on the right situation, the bokeh on the Note 10 actually can look nice. However, keep in mind that this is software generated bokeh, so it's not gonna be able to look as nice as a real natural bokeh from a large sensor camera. Now when we're talking about software generated bokeh or software generated everything, software cannot always generate everything 100% right all the time. It will always have some limitations, and with this phone it's no exception. However, software generated bokeh like the one in the Galaxy Note 10 does have some advantage when you compare to Micro Four Thirds. So you can basically adjust your bokeh after you take the shot using the Galaxy Note 10, and that is something that you cannot do using the Micro Four Thirds. This camera in particular does have some software features built into the camera, such as the post focus, which is the ability for you to choose the focus point on the picture after you take the shot, but that is nothing compared to what the Galaxy Note software can do with the images. Next, let's talk about dynamic range. Dynamic range is much better when shooting using Micro Four Thirds camera, especially when you are shooting in RAW. With the Micro Four Thirds camera, you can really push far the RAW files so that you can have enough flexibility during post-processing to adjust your shadows and highlight and turn any backlight picture to look really good. The Galaxy Note 10 can shoot RAW only using the main lens. You cannot shoot RAW using the ultra-wide or the telephoto lens. However, something that I think is much better than shooting RAW using the Note 10 is actually the Auto HDR option on the shooting menu, which enables you to turn on HDR automatically when the phone detects that it's a backlight situation. The Auto HDR option on the Galaxy Note 10 is still a software-based solution, so sometimes it's still a hit or miss, but when it works, it can turn a challenging lighting situation into a very balanced exposure with a good amount of shadow and highlight on the image, and the picture will look good. However, sometimes the auto HDR can go a little bit too crazy and turns the picture into something that looks very unreal. But still, even though it's a hit or miss, it's still something that's really good and it's not available on the Micro Four Thirds system. To do an HDR photo using Micro Four Thirds camera, you have to manually bracket your exposures using different shots. And also, you still need to do post-processing after you take the bracketing exposure. Now let's talk about shooting in a controlled environment using artificial light for product photography, which is something that I do quite often. I compared the shots from the Micro Four Thirds with the Galaxy Note 10 on a controlled environment using artificial light, and there are a couple of things that I noticed right away. First, the live focus mode on the Galaxy Note 10 really struggles to detect where the borders of the bokeh are. And this is one example where software-based bokeh still has some limitations on. Other thing that I noticed is that when I'm trying to do a low-key photography or when I'm trying to use black background, the Note 10 really struggles with the exposure because it tries to brighten up the picture. So you have to manually reduce the exposure on the Galaxy Note 10 so that the final image won't look too bright. With the Micro Four Thirds, you can easily shoot in manual or do the exposure compensation with the available dials. Also, some other thing that I noticed is that the Galaxy Note 10 tends to add more contrast to the final image, so that when we are shooting on a low-key product photography shot, the final result will become too contrasty so that the highlights become blown out or turns into total white. And that is something that the Micro Four Thirds can easily solve by shooting raw and adjust using post-processing later on. And that brings us to the end and the conclusion of this video. So based on all the things that I already observed when shooting using both the Micro Four Thirds and the Galaxy Note 10, I really don't think that the Galaxy Note 10 will replace my Micro Four Thirds camera. But I really have to say that the Galaxy Note 10 does have some great camera features that really impressed me. With some of its software-based solutions, I can definitely say that the Galaxy Note 10 deserves a place in my photography toolbox as one of my photography tools. The Galaxy Note 10 can be very useful in many different situations, and it can be a really great everyday camera as well as a general purpose camera. A photographer named Chase Jarvis once said, "The best camera is the one that you have with you." And with the Galaxy Note 10, I'm sure that I will be able to take great pictures easily. However, as I said earlier, my Micro Four Thirds system is not going anywhere. It will still be my primary choice when I'm doing more serious photography as well as video stuff. And also, my Micro Four Thirds system does have some more flexibility as well as higher performance when compared to the Galaxy Note 10. So it still has a place in my photography toolbox as well. So in the future, I'm sure that I will employ the Galaxy Note 10 more for casual, everyday and general purpose stuff. And in conclusion, although the Galaxy Note 10 won't replace my Micro Four Thirds, I'm really impressed with it, and I'm sure that this is a step on the right direction for the smartphone photography in the future. So that is all for today's video. I hope that this video is useful for you. Please comment down below if you have any experience shooting using a dedicated camera versus a smartphone. Also, don't forget to support my channel by liking this video, sharing this video and subscribing to my channel down below. Thank you and goodbye.